I'm here for another Quattro Minuti con Casanova. I'm in the Castello district in the very northern end of Venice. In fact, the Cemetery Island and then Murano are just over here to my left, just past this group of buildings. But I'm here today to talk about the house that's right behind me. If you look here, look for the house that has no stucco on the front, it's bare brick and has the green awnings. That was the house that Casanova lived in with Francesca Buschini. She was a seamstress. Now this was a little later in Casanova's life. He was 49 at this time. This was, of course, after he was a young man and had been imprisoned in Venice and then was exiled for about 18 years and then finally was able to obtain a pardon and come back to the city. Now here's the big irony. To make some money, he had to find a job, of course, and so he started working as a spy for the state Inquisition. And this is especially ironic because just a half a block this way is the street where he was living when he was arrested after being spied on by the state Inquisition. Very close to the place where he was arrested. But here when he lived with Francesca Buschini, they had a really nice sort of tranquil life, a very homey kind of life. Like I said, she was a seamstress. She brought in a little bit of money that way, but not really enough for them to live on. They also had her mother and her brother living with them, and at least one dog and a bunch of chickens. We have a bunch of Francesca's letters remaining to us. Quite a few of her letters have survived. And she writes of these sort of mundane things. For example, if you look way up to the very top of the building, there's kind of a garret up there, and that's where they kept the chickens. And in one of the letters, she writes about the chickens in the garret so that the chicken dirt is up there and it won't soil the rest of the house. So some of these sort of homely little things. She also writes how she kisses him with all her heart. Very sweet kind of stuff. Now, sadly, though, Casanova got himself into hot water again by angering Carlo Grimani, which I talk about in another one of the videos. And so Casanova had to flee rather abruptly, and he had to leave Venice quite quickly. He wasn't able to take most of his stuff. He left most of his books and a lot of his clothes here with Francesca. He came by in a boat, gave her a kiss goodbye, and then he left. But he wrote to her often. And we don't have his letters to her, but we do have her letters to him. Also, he would send her money whenever he could. But this was at a time in his life when his fortunes had kind of turned and he wasn't doing so well. He was no longer the young man with all the vigor that he used to have. And he didn't have a steady job or income. So he would send her money when he could, but it wasn't real steady. Like I said, she was a seamstress, wasn't enough to pay the bills, so she really relied on the money from Casanova, and her letters show this. In fact, one time she sold a number of his books. He was very angry about that because he loved his books. Another time she took a bunch of his clothing, because he had some really beautiful clothing, and she went to the ghetto where the pawnbrokers were, and she pawned or sold a number of his clothes, and he even writes about, or she writes about some of the specific clothes that she pawned. And again, he was not happy about that. But she was doing what she needed to do to survive. This is pretty cool when we talk about the Casanova houses here in Venice. This is definitely one of the places where he lived. We have the address, and the house has not changed in 250 years.